Well, welcome to another My Life in Football and Series 4. And fantastic to say that really pleased to have a chat with this man for the second time in under a week. And it was an
I know.
absolute pleasure the first time, and it's a pleasure again this time. And of course, the one and only Mr. Kevin Horlock. How are you, Kev?
I'm all good. Thanks for having me, mate. People start talking, us keep doing the podcast. Hey,
But mate, I mean, everything, I suppose it asked you how you are, and everything seems to be going quite well at the minute, doesn't it? I mean, you've had a sort of a bump down, a couple of steps, but I mean, into a project that looks like it's going to be incredible, and it's just going through the roof, isn't it?
yeah, it's exciting times for me, mate. Like I said to you before, it was really tough for me to leave Needham. I'm a loyal person. I was through my career with clubs I've been at, and obviously I had great times at Needham. Obviously the success we had, four back-to-back Premier Cups, obviously promotion to Step Two for little old Needham. Um, First round of the FA Cup, first time, and FA Trophy quarterfinals. It was great times, but this just felt right. I've got to be honest, it felt right after meeting the owners, what they've got planned for the football club, the building blocks they're putting in place, that they want to push the club forward. And I've said it a few times now in interviews. I've had unfinished business at Maldon. I got to the playoff final in my last stint there, the brief 2 years that I had there with a very young team, I've got to say, and we just missed out. So unfinished business. So it's good to be back, and the buzz around the place is incredible.
No, absolutely. We'll come back to Maldon later on, but let's go back. I mean, where did the young sort of Kevin Horlock first get involved in this mad world of football? Was it like most other people, sort of dad taking you along to, sort of youth teams, or was it from school? I mean, where did it all start for you?
Yeah, look, my dad wasn't a footballer by any means. He was an electrician, my dad, but from a really young age, I remember this. I'm going to show my age here a little bit. The cine films. Do you remember the cine
Yeah,
films?
yeah.
I remember watching them as a young kid, and there's me as a toddler, barely walking, with a nappy on, kicking a football about. And obviously, it's got to be said early on. Obviously, my dad was my inspiration. He was the person that took me everywhere. So I was kicking a ball from a very young age. He was a great dad. He was always with me in the garden, throwing the ball to me from as young as I can remember, and drove me everywhere. I think as a kid, I suppose all footballers will say the same. You obviously don't really understand it at the time or appreciate it. You just think it's a given. But being older, looking back, my dad worked long hours, and he always had time for me. Always dropped me to football, to school matches, to county matches, and obviously on to the professional clubs where I was a schoolboy. So yeah, it started off in the garden, and ended up in Blue Water Car Park, mate. I am on the podcast to you. So yeah, it was an unbelievable journey. But my dad, I've got a lot to thank my dad for.
Hmm. So where did it also? I mean, what was your first team that you actually started playing for? Then was it a school team or was it a team outside?
Yeah, I think I started off at school. I played in the school team as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. I always played a year up. I was, yeah, at that age, I think everyone thought I was destined to go on and play for England and England captain and all that. I didn't quite get there, but I played a year up for the school team. I was a schoolboy at Charlton Athletic, which was my dad's team, which my dad must have loved because he was a ardent Charlton Athletic fan, and took me to games as well. So, yeah, it started over at Sparrows Lane, playing for Charlton at the age of, I don't know, about 9, I think it was.
And what was that like though for a young lad all of a sudden sort of maybe sort of playing with your mates and then sort of playing with getting picked up by a team like Charlton to go and play there?
Do you know what? It was just football.
Hmm.
As a kid, I didn't really see it being Charlton. I didn't really recognise it as that. For me, it was just playing football. And back then, you was allowed as a kid to play all types of football. So I was still playing with my mates. I was still playing for the county. I was still playing on a Sunday, and still playing in school. So look, I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with football and just wanted to play it every minute of every day that I was awake. Which obviously lent itself to me developing quite well, I suppose. But yeah, I was just obsessed with football. But going into Charlton, obviously a better environment and better playing surface that I was used to at the top of my road, where I used to kick around with lads that were a lot older than me. It was obviously more football and more chance to develop.
So when you sort of played for them, how long was you at Charlton for?
I can't really remember. It's a little bit of a blur, if I'm totally honest. So I was at Charlton for a couple of years, I think, and then I went. I got picked up playing for my school by Arsenal.
Mhm.
So obviously Arsenal being the massive club it is, I imagine it was quite a big decision for my dad to make, to leave Charlton, his boyhood team, but he obviously recognised that Arsenal were a bigger club. So we went across to train at Highbury at the JVC Centre, and again I didn't appreciate how much time and effort it would have took my dad to get me there, because I live South East London, so my dad worked East London. So we'd meet after his work. My mum would drop me to my dad, and then we'd get the train up to Highbury, train in the evening and get back. So my dad was doing like a 12-hour day shift at work, and then going through across London up to North London to sit and watch me train for a couple of hours, getting back at, I don't know what time, it would have been about 11 o'clock. So that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. And I do remember that quite fondly, being at Arsenal at the JVC Centre. We obviously indoors, 3G it was at the time. So, and obviously the standard of player was a lot better as well. So I do remember that time. But again, I still think about, God, my dad must have been absolutely shattered, mate.
Yeah. I mean, any players that you played with there at Arsenal, not when he was training, that went on?
I think Ray Parlour was there. So Ray Parlour would have been the same age as me. Obviously, we were still very young. There was a couple of lads that went on to play a couple of games. Couple represented England. But my time there was, I don't know, I was there about 2 years, I think. Vic Akers, an Arsenal legend. I think he still has a little bit to do with Arsenal. I think he's been there, I don't know, 60 years. Often on the bench, but he was one of my first coaches there. And then the time come to leave, because I was playing for my school again, and West Ham approached me. And at that time, you could change over clubs, and obviously now there's money you've got to pay and compensation. But at that time, it wasn't there, and West Ham had come in and offered me schoolboy forms, which was a little bit easier for my dad to get to. Obviously, West Ham, I was a lot fonder of West Ham than Arsenal. I was a bit of a West Ham young boy. And it worked for my dad. He, like I said, he worked in East London, so it made it a lot easier. So, yeah, that was when my real journey, I think, started, where I was going into West Ham two times a week and playing games at the weekend, and probably where I flourished and learnt a lot.
He was there, what, up to about 1989? So he was there in 1989, and it says on there, didn't get to get to the first team side of it, but then moved on to Swindon. What was that like, leaving someone like, as you said, sort of like West Ham, which was possibly quite close, and moving to Swindon?
Do you know what? I still remember it like it was yesterday. I'd been at West Ham a long time, and I'd done really well in the youth team. I was playing in the what was then the reserves. There wasn't 23, so the reserve games were unbelievable learning curve for me, in terms of first team lads that hadn't played at the weekend. We'd have a reserve fixture on the Monday night. I've played in reserve games at West Ham with Liam Brady and everybody. It was unbelievable, and all clubs did the same. So I was exposed to playing against first team players of the clubs we were playing on a regular basis at a really young age. I developed so much. Did my YTS form, for those that do remember it. I thought I was the richest man in the world, but I didn't do it to earn money out of football. I just wanted to be a footballer. I think I was on £28.50 a week. Felt like the richest man on the planet. I think my first wage packet, I think I bought a pair of trainers and a tracksuit, and that was me done for the month. But it was great times at West Ham, and like I said, I was a little bit of a West Ham fan, so it held a place in my heart. So when I left, and when it come about, I got emotional. I'm not going to lie, it was tough, but I think I was a little bit ahead of my time. I'd done my 2 years YTS, took me to 18. I'd done a year's pro, and then I got offered another professional contract. And for whatever reason, I don't know how I come to it, but it was probably the best decision I ever made. I thought, do you know what? I'd seen other lads at West Ham who had been there a long time, look a bit older than me, 23, 24, and hadn't still got to the first team. And I thought, do you know what? In front of me, I had Chris Hughton, those that can remember him. I had Paris that could play left back as well, which I was a left back at the time. I had Julian Dix, who was a West Ham legend. And I thought, you know what? Am I actually going to get a chance here? Or am I going to be a number where I stay around, play a record amount of reserve games and never become a proper footballer? So Swindon showed interest. I think it was through John Gorman more than Glenn Hoddle, although I tell everybody it was Glenn Hoddle, but obviously he was one of my heroes, and he was obviously manager at Swindon. But look, the link come from John Gorman being involved at Orient at under 18 level, and at under 18 level I was playing left back, scoring quite a lot of goals. So Swindon come in for me, but it was John Gorman obviously influenced that, and I went down there, and it just all fell into place. So I was lucky. I mean, I say it all the time. Yes, I was obsessed with football. I really was. I wanted to be a footballer more than anything in the world. But it all just fell into place. I went to Swindon. Obviously, they played unbelievable football, which suited me coming through West Ham's academy. And then the left back got injured. Quite soon after I got there, Paul Bowden, Welsh international, got injured, and I got thrown in at the deep end. So it worked out a really, really big moment in my career making that decision. Like I say, I had all the dedication, I had the drive, I had enough ability to maybe make it, but also you need that little bit of luck. And would have I got my chance? Maybe, but I don't know. Was I ready for my chance? Probably not, if I'm totally honest. I was still quite a skinny teenager, but I got thrown in at the deep end and did quite well. So it was away at Portsmouth. I come on as sub and then played the next game and got my home league debut. So again, I've got to thank John Gorman for that, for giving me that opportunity to go there. And I'm just thankful that I made that quite wise decision at quite a young age.
What was it like though? So what sort of influence was that like playing underneath probably one of my favourite Arsenal players of all time in Liam Brady? Because I still remember him on that old soccer sixties, chesting the ball down in his own half, turning around and smashing it in the top corner of the other end still. Do you know what I mean? And one of the best players I've ever seen at Arsenal. And then sort of from there moving to be under that sort of influence of Glenn Hoddle as well, another, top sort of, centre midfield player.
Yeah, it was a pinch me moment. It was really weird. I remember one game actually when I was at West Ham. We played in a reserve game away at Millwall, and it was quite a hostile environment, even though it was a reserve game. And Liam Brady had played in that, and I got absolutely torn to shreds at left back by Jimmy Carter. I don't know if you remember Jimmy.
Yeah.
He was an unbelievable player and played for some top teams. He absolutely twisted me inside out, and I was only a young kid, and I was nearly in tears. And Liam Brady come in and he sort of come up to me and put his arm around me. He said, "Look, you're a young lad. That's a learning experience for you. That's what you could be up against a lot more often in your career." And that moment stuck with me because I'm getting advice and a bit of comfort from one of the greatest players that ever played football. So that was brilliant, and obviously something that I'll always remember. But then to go to Swindon and play under Glenn Hoddle, with Glenn Hoddle, because he played at the time as a player manager, was unbelievable. And sometimes I sort of in my career, like now, obviously I'm long finished, and I sometimes think back and God, did that really happen? I was playing with Glenn Hoddle because I played wing back, so he played sweeper, Glenn. And I'll never forget it. We always trained with Adidas Tango balls. He loved Adidas Tango, not the Mitre Delt ones, Adidas Tango. And he used to always say to me, "Look, go high and wide on the touchline, and I'll find you." And he used to just step in with the ball. Honestly, it was incredible. And he'd just ping it to me, and it just land on my chest or at my feet every single time. It never missed. So he made my job a lot easier. But there were look, Swindon had a few good players. I know another lad that you'd probably remember is Mickey Hazard.
Yeah.
Midfielder again. He was at Tottenham with Glenn, I think, in that similar era. He was an unbelievable player. So for me to go there, get the opportunity through a little bit of luck from Paul Bowden's misfortune of getting injured, was an unbelievable learning curve for me. And I did okay. And kept my place. And I think that's where my career really took off. And I could finally say I'm a footballer.
I mean, with that though, I mean, as well, you went into. I mean, how long was it before you got into the Premier League? Because you had a season in there as well, didn't you, with Swindon?
Yes, my first season we didn't make it, and then my second season, I think it might have even been the first season. To be fair, they got to the playoff final and beat Leicester. I think it was 4-3. So I was in the squad, but I didn't actually get stripped that day. Again, I was still cutting my teeth. They had a squad of really good players at the time. I think Mickey Hazard actually was doubtful for the game, so there was a chance I was going to be involved. But in the end, he on the day of the game, the playoff final, he come through. So I travelled with the team again. It was a great experience for me, and something that I was going to go on to experience again, obviously with City in '99. But to be around it, to see it, to witness it, although I wasn't playing in the game, it was great to be part of, and I enjoyed myself that night as if I'd played, mate. I had a few beers and that, and I was probably thinking to myself, yes, Kev, you've made it as a footballer, and you can call yourself that now.
What was that like though, playing in the Premier League? For the first time at such a young age as well.
Again, it's difficult for me to explain because I was such a football fanatic. I was obsessed with football. I'd watched obviously Match of the Day from as young as I can remember. So that first Premier League season, to be walking out against your Man Uniteds, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, your Tottenhams at the stadium. Just being in the stadium, it was strange, but unbelievable. I can't explain the feeling. Hairs went up on the back of my neck every time to like the little things, like walking out and like I'm not a Liverpool fan by any means a stretch of the imagination, but walking out Anfield and seeing the crest, the Liverpool crest that they touched, I knew it was a tradition. It was football, like it was, and even going to Wembley and playing at Wembley, it was. Oh yeah, look, I did all right. I look back now with fondness, and I look back and think, you know what, the kid from South East London did all right with his ability. Probably overachieved to play in the Premier League. I've always been honest about how good I was. I worked hard. I was dedicated. I had a decent left foot. I turned slower than milk, but I give it everything, and I got to play at the top. So I probably overachieved, but I enjoyed every single minute of it.
But I mean, I'll ask you if there's any games that stick in your memory from that first Premier League season. But is it me though? You mean you mentioned Liverpool, and we've done, with the misses, I've gone round and done the stadium tours, the Wembleys, the Arsenals, the Tottenhams, and I'm a massive Arsenal fan to my pains. Do you know what I mean? But you go round to these different grounds. But we went to Liverpool a few years ago. And there's just something about that place. I mean, it was completely empty, and yet I still had the hairs on the back of my neck and my arms just sticking up. And the minute you walked out into that bowl of the stadium, it's just something about it, isn't it? It's just, I don't
Yeah,
know.
shit, it's the history, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like all us football fans, you always remember moments and great teams and great results and all that. And I think it's just that. I think it's just obviously it's quite documented Anfield, and it's been involved with a lot of massive games in obviously the Premier League and European games. So yeah, but I like all the old stadiums, the old White Hart Lane, the old Highbury. I'm probably just showing my age and probably stuck in my ways, but as good as the new stadiums are, they're unbelievable, obviously, and brilliant for fans and facilities. But for me, nostalgia, all the old grounds are better for me.
Mm. I must admit, the only thing I think the only issue with that whole ground was when I asked one of the stewards that were there showing you around where the Arsenal fans stood in 1989 when we won. I don't think the question went down very well.
Again, that's a moment that takes you back to Anfield. It's unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. But I mean, what any big memories, games that you feel, in that season that really sort of stood out for you?
Yeah, there's a couple of bizarre ones really. I remember we played Chelsea away, and I think that was a bit late. That wasn't actually the Swindon one, but we drew with Liverpool 2-2. So I'll start with that one actually. Obviously Swindon, we were the whipping boys in the Premier League. I think um, we'd conceded 95 goals, and we had one game left of the season. We had Leeds, and John Gorman said, "Right, come on, boys, we don't concede 100 goals." And I think we lost 5-0. I think conceded. But that season, we had a couple of mad results. We drew Liverpool away 2-2, which was unbelievable. That was my first experience of playing at Anfield. And I set the first goal up. So just being there, like little moments like that, playing at Manchester United was massive as well. And obviously, I'm not a Manchester United fan either, by the way. I'm the blue side these days. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. It's weird thinking back and even doing this and talking about it, because it's something that I probably dismiss and don't remember too much. It's all a bit of a blur as well at times.
Well, I mean, a bit of a goal scorer as well. 16 goals in 95-96 season. I mean,
Yeah, well, to be fair, I think that's probably what got me my move, and obviously got my career to progress. I'd been moved in, so Steve McMahon had come in at Swindon. John Gorman had left with Glenn. So Glenn went the first year, then John went after. So when John left, Steve McMahon come in, and he sort of took a liking to me and moved me into midfield. He was player manager, so I played in midfield alongside him, and I just went from this left back who was fairly aggressive, picked most people, to this midfielder that couldn't run quick but could run all day. And I just made box to box runs. I did the dirty side of it, so the defending and the tackling and the heading and the kicking and all that. But I made sure that I made runs into the box. And that season in particular, everything dropped to me. Everything that fell to me seemed to go in. So that sort of got my name on the radar. I was still quite a young lad, and scoring goals from midfield. Like, I'm a manager now, and every manager across the country, no matter what level, wants a goal scoring midfielder.
yeah. And I mean, looking at on here, I mean, 200 appearances, all competitions, scoring 26 goals in 5 seasons at Swindon. and he says moved on to Man City. Stay humble, of course. In January 1997. I mean, what was that like going there? Because at the time, I think it was at the time there, Man City were sort of on a downward spiral, wasn't it?
Yeah, to be fair, it come about. I knew there was interest. Stephen McMahon was really good for me. One, career wise, he moved me into midfield, but he was always really honest with me. I think Swindon at the time were in a little bit of financial trouble, so he had come to me and said, "Look, we're in a position where the club is going to have to sell you. You're our most sellable asset." At the time, he said there has been clubs. So he used to pull me on a weekly basis before a game, saying, "Look," and there was loads of clubs at the games. All the big boys from Scotland, your Manchester United, your Arsenals, your Tottenhams, all the clubs were looking at me because I was scoring goals. And I still remember the day it happened because we'd played Wolves away on the Wednesday, I think it was. And I wasn't feeling too great, to be fair. We played the game. I can't remember what the score was. And on the Thursday, obviously, I got back late from the game, and I had a bit of a lay-in. We was off on the Thursday, and then my phone rang, and it was Steve McMahon, and he said, "Look, we've had a couple of offers for you." I said, "Oh, right, what's happening?" And he said, "We've had an offer from Birmingham City at the time. I think they were at the top of the Championship at the time for 1.25 million." And he said, "We've agreed a fee with Manchester City for 1.5." So I'd never been in this situation before. When I left West Ham to go to Swindon, I sort of walked out the door, got my mini metro, and left. But this was all a bit different. There was money involved, which was quite big money at the time. So I sort of said to Steve, I said, "Look, Gaffer, what would you do?" And his honest answer was, he said, "Look, there might be other offers later in the day." He said, "But if I was you, I'd get in your car and drive to Manchester." He said, "Manchester City is an unbelievable football club. Obviously, he'd previously played there." He said, "Go up there." So I listened to it. I trusted him. And I'm glad I did because I went up there, signed, and it was the best time of my life. The club was in turmoil, like you said. I think there was 52 pros the first day I turned up, where managers there'd been a revolving door of managers, and obviously they're bringing players in. They couldn't get players out. It was absolute carnage. But I joined a massive football club, and I didn't probably realise how big it was until I got there. Um, but we ended up going down to the third tier of English football, and the stadium was full out, 32,000. The worse we got, the better they got. It was incredible times, and um, I'm glad the supporters of Manchester City are getting all the success they're getting because they deserve it because they see some dross over the years.
I mean, look at it. I mean, you went in there and scored, your first goal against Oxford United. And the following season you were regular in the side. Um, I mean, what was it like that? Because you was also sort of working under another sort of legendary manager in Frank Clark. I mean, my dad would tell me that he's an absolute legend because, of course, he's an Orient fan. So he'd tell me that he's an absolute legend. What was that like? Sort of going in under him.
I loved it. Again, I'll always be thankful for Frank Clark, like I am with John Gorman, for giving me the opportunity to play for Manchester City. He did actually say, and again, I didn't even hear of this. Apparently, he'd tried to sign me for Nottingham Forest. I think it was a year before or whatever. But look, I turned up and to be at a club like Manchester City with Frank Clark, that I'd obviously been really successful in his own playing career, was unbelievable for me. It was. I knew I had that feeling I'd joined a big club. I know it was in a bit of turmoil at the time, but you sense you're at a big club, and with that comes expectation. And at the time, it was difficult because we wasn't having the best of times. I joined a club that was just come out of the Premier League, that had players leaving, wanting to leave, and stuff. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something I really relished and got my teeth into. And I think the fans took to me because I wasn't a big name by any means. I wasn't a massive signing, although 1.5 million was a lot of money. But what I did do and what I did all my career was I give everything I had. As limited as it might have been, I would have run through brick walls for every club I played for. And I think the fans see that and took to that. And a little bit embarrassing to me that, look, Manchester City fans adore me still to this day for that. And it's something that I demand off the players I manage now. I think hard work is a non-negotiable and giving everything. So, yeah, they took to me straight away. And I'm still thought of fondly in Manchester.
Great. One question I asked you then is, so as a manager you are now, do you make sure you tell your players not to walk towards a referee in an aggressive manner?
I knew that was going to come up. Do you know what? I'm not an aggressive person. I'm a lover, not a hater. I'm but again, it's something that I decided quite young in my career because I am quite a softie. I am. I can't believe I'm saying this now. Everyone's going to know I am a softie, but I used to hide it a little bit. I shaved my hair off. Like, do you know what I mean? I shaved. I had a skinhead. Tried to be a bit aggressive on the pitch. I hated confrontation, but on the pitch, that was where I wanted to win. I wanted to have that little bit extra. I wanted to be different. So I come across as quite an aggressive fella. And the moment you're on about it was at Bournemouth Way. Um, and I wasn't aggressive that day. I would have tried to be in the game, but I think something had happened. Someone got injured. There was a break in play. So I went to the ref to ask him about a decision. I'm walking 10 yards away from him. But I do say as well, I've got one leg shorter, slightly shorter than the other, I think. So I was leaning forward, and I've got quite a quick walk as well. So, and if you walk quickly, it could come across as aggressive, I suppose. But he just flashed a red card, and I've sort of looked behind me like that. He went, "No, you, off you go." So off I went. Jamie Pollock had already been sent off, and I've gone in the dressing room, and he said, "What you've been sent off for?" I said, "I actually don't know." And the report come through said I walked towards the ref in an aggressive manner. And you know what? The fact that you've mentioned it, and it's mentioned a lot, especially when Bournemouth play Manchester City, my phone pops off. It's a highlight of my career. So I don't know what that tells you how good my career was. Do you know what I mean? It's the most spoken about thing when Kev Horlock's mentioned his aggressive walk. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, mate, if I'm honest.
I think you're probably underestimating the next question then, because this has got, I would say, probably one of the greatest games of football I think I've ever seen, in all fairness. And I think that's the 1999 playoff final against Gillingham. I mean, probably one of the most incredible. And if it didn't happen, a lot of Manchester City fans will be sitting here today saying, well, would they be where they are now if what happened that day didn't happen? And can you remember who the referee was that day?
Yeah, Mark Halsey.
Was Mount Housley, yeah, because he spoke. I've spoken to him on My Life in Football, and he's spoken about the actual fight, the actual game. But you, from your point of view, then talk us through the day going into that game, because the pressure that must have been on Manchester City going into that game must have been absolutely horrific.
Do you know what? As players, you didn't really feel it. We knew we had to get out of that division, obviously, but I mean we had the expectation of Manchester City fans and everybody else, but we didn't realise how important it was in terms. Sorry, I'm just going to try and charge my phone a bit. We didn't understand the importance of the situation what the club was in. We didn't know financially it was in a whole lot of trouble. So me being me, and I think it's why Joe Royle really took to me, and the reason why he signed me at Ipswich later on in my career was I was a bit of a joker. So I was messing around the night before. We stayed in a hotel down near Wembley, and I just treated it like another game, messing around, all the usual stuff that I was up to. We went to the game, and it was an unbelievable. Again, it was a pinch me moment because Twin Towers. I'm getting to play at the Twin Towers. The drive through, all the Manchester City fans. It was mental. Like, it was as if we was playing the FA Cup final, but here we were playing the League Two playoff final. But the game itself was probably exciting for the neutral, maybe. But as a player, it was quite dull in terms of there wasn't loads of goal mouth action. I do remember one thing. I missed a sitter from about 2 yards, header. That played on my mind the whole game. It was the cross. I remember Cookie crossed it, Terry Cook, and it's come slightly behind me, and I've sort of adjusted and headed it, and it went straight to Vince Bartram. Anywhere else it's him, but it went straight to him, and it played on my mind because obviously we ended up going 2-0 down. I'm thinking, God, I've ruined it here if I'd have scored that. But lucky enough, it played out how it played out, and obviously I ended up scoring, getting one back. And I always say to the Man City fans, it is bloody lucky that fell on my left foot, mate, because if it fell on my right, that could have been anywhere in the stadium and things could have been different. And then obviously Paul Dickoff gets the last, the goal in, I can't remember, it was 93 minutes or something in injury time to take it to penalties. The injury time or extra time isn't worth talking about because nothing happened. And then obviously on to penalties, which was scary, mate. I'm not going to lie, scary. Like I couldn't wait to play at Wembley, but when I found myself walking from the halfway line to take a penalty, I was fairly nervous.
And then Nicky Weaver to the rescue.
Yeah, look, I always say to him, though, to be fair, I would have saved some of them penalties. They weren't great. They missed the target a couple of times, and the one that was on target was straight at him. But he was brilliant for us. He was a young kid at the time, and to have that effect on us, and he was a great character, and yeah, he saved a few, and then we gone on to win, which was massive. We didn't realise how big it was at the time, but we later hear that if we hadn't have won that game, then Manchester City was in massive financial trouble and probably wouldn't have gone on to where they are now.
Like when when you left sort of Man City 2003, I mean, I've got this stat in front of me, and you can tell me if this is true or not true, because it seems an incredible stat if it is true. Um, Went to West Ham in 2004 to 2000, 2003, 2004. 27 appearances, 32 goals.
I want to lie now and say that was true. It's not true. No, I played. I think I played 32 games and scored one goal. I think something like
Okay.
that.
I say that's
Yeah,
what
I wish
I
that was true,
thought.
mate.
Wow. But
Can we just pretend it is true?
yeah. No, that'd be,
And you know what? Look, I would love that stat to be true,
yeah.
obviously, but one's enough for me. I was, like I said to you earlier, I was a West Ham fan, so to get one goal for West Ham's first team at Upton Park, that is what I dreamt of as a kid.
Yeah.
So it is unfortunately only one, but that one is probably the most special goal in my career. And it was a right, believe it or not, it was a right foot tapping. Like in my dreams, it was like a left foot rocket from 32 yards, top corner. It was against Wigan. We won 4-1, I think it was, and it was a right foot tapping from about 3 yards. But oi, I scored for West Ham, mate.
That's all that matters. I mean, the next stat makes shows you that it is true because it wasn't true because it says you went to Doncaster Rovers, and I say this would have been incredible. It's better than Ireland. This one went to Doncaster Rovers on loan, 13 appearances and scored 85 goals. I mean, that's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, who's is this off Wikipedia?
Yeah, I mean,
I adjusted Wikipedia before I come on, mate. I adjusted it so you'd make me sound really good. I went on loan. I don't remember scoring on loan, to be fair. I went on loan from Ipswich, and I enjoyed it there. And obviously, then the manager changed. So Joe Roll left Ipswich, and then I decided, or I ended up signing full time at Doncaster. And unfortunately, the time there was tough. I only played 2 games, scored 1 goal, mine. So that's not bad, is it? 50-50 or 50% ratio. And got injured in my second game, and then I just didn't get back fit. I was out for over a year and a half with 2 really serious injuries.
So we're losing your picture a little bit from where you are, but we carry on. But I mean, what was it? How proud were you though going into getting that call up for Northern Ireland? Then I mean, that must have been something else, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was massive. And look, I know I've not got that Irish accent, but obviously I'm proud of where my family are from. My grandparents, so it's my mum's mum and dad are both from Ireland. I had the option actually playing for Republic or Northern Ireland. And again, it was a tough decision. At the time, Republic of Ireland were more successful. But I just thought, you know what? I went over to Belfast and I just wanted to represent my granddad's country, and it was more chance of me playing and being involved. So I went there, and I loved every second of it. Every time I pulled on the shirt again, I think they quite like me because I give everything. I couldn't play football any other way, so it was again it was quite weird. Singing the national anthem and playing against all these world-class players that obviously play for the likes of Spain, Germany, Italy. It was an incredible experience.
And then you had the honour of them being the under-21s manager as well.
Yeah, I didn't think about going into coaching or being a manager. I sort of got to the end of my career through them bad injuries at Doncaster, and was probably a little bit naive in the fact that I just thought I was going to play forever. I don't know. I was in this football bubble, and all I wanted to be was a footballer, and I didn't see anything beyond it. And then obviously the day come that I couldn't play anymore due to injury and being out of contract. I think I was 35, 36 at the time. And I sat at home thinking, what am I bloody going to do now? And I just didn't know. And the only thing I knew was football. So I started doing my coaching badges, started working with young children in schools, which I absolutely loved. It gives so much reward, seeing young kids smiling and having fun playing football and developing at the same time. And I probably would have said at the time that's what I'm going to stick with, but I got involved with coaching when I went to Needham Market in terms of helping Danny Laws out, assistant manager, and then I went out to do my A licence in Ireland, and that's where they offered me the job. They said, "Oh, we like how you work. Would you be prepared to come out and take the 21s?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So that's sort of where where it sort of evolved from me not knowing what to do to coaching at non-league level with Needham and helping out Danny Laws to then taking the national team under 21s and going on the journey that I've gone on.
So I mean, so when your career was over, then I mean, it was like Chatham Town for a season, Maldon Tiptree the first time for a couple of seasons, uh, and you mentioned something earlier on when we started, unfinished business. What's the unfinished business then that you feel that you still need to achieve with Need? Is that the promotion and put and
Maldon,
moving up?
look, my journey. So I went to Chatham because I'd moved back down the Kent way. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to stay involved in football. I'll put my CV in. I ended up getting the Chatham job. That was tough. Like there was at the time, the club's been unbelievable successful recently, but there was no budget. But it was just for me keeping my eye on. And then I was thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to work as? And then I think it was my daughter that put my CV in to Colchester United to work with the under-18s, and I ended up getting an interview, getting that job. And then that's sort of where the Maldon job come from, because obviously Robbie Cowlin, the owner of Colchester, owned Maldon as well. So he wanted me to be involved with the 18s at Colchester, but also manage Maldon and take players from Colchester to give them men's football. And so that's sort of where it started. And I loved it. I actually loved it. It was tough because the budget was massive, but I had a mixture of I had to have young players, so 6 young players, 18 under 18 that had come out of the professional game that trained all full time with Colchester, and then the other half of the budget I could use for non-league players. So it was a difficult blend. They wanted me to give youngsters a chance, but also get promoted. It just didn't quite work because obviously you need a little bit more than that. And we got to the playoff final. We're a brilliant, really young team, and to be fair, a few of the lads that played for me that have gone on and had really good careers in football, but we just missed out in the playoff final. To Thurrock. They beat us 1-0. I think we'd beaten 4-0 in the league, and then they beat us 1-0 in the playoff final. And then went out of business the year after, and it's something that's played on my mind since. So when this opportunity come up to go back to Maldon, that definitely played a factor in it, because I want to put them wrongs right and hopefully get Maldon Tiptree out step 4 for the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, then you found yourself at Needham Market in what's got to be saying probably one of the most successful periods of times for that club.
Yeah, look, it's a great football club first and foremost. Everyone, when teams get success, it's always thrown onto the manager, and I think that's wrong because, look, obviously I did quite a good job there, but there was so many people that did probably more than me. The volunteers, the CEO, Graham Emerson, the chairman. There's so many people that put building blocks in place at Needham that made the club a proper non-league football club. It was never in doubt or never in financial trouble. It was built on strong foundations from the bottom up. It then got a successful academy. So the time was right. Obviously, I went there and I was lucky enough to inherit quite a good team anyway, but I added some players to that of the right character, of the right ability, and together we worked our socks off. We didn't have the highest budget. We was probably last year when we got promoted to step 2, we probably 18th in the table in terms of budget. But when you create a really nice environment for lads to come and want to learn, want to work hard, and you can show a little bit of empathy to that and pull together in the right direction with everybody else at the football club doing work, then special stuff can happen.
So I mean, where was it? I mean, when you joined them, then were they step 4 when you joined them?
I don't know. They were in the Regions League. I don't know what step that was. I think it might have been 4 or 5. And I love it. Do you know what? I love playing there. I'd obviously had the professional career I'd had, and it had been quite intense and training every day, but I couldn't train every day. So I trained on a Tuesday and Thursday. I loved the fact that Danny Laws was at the time a really young, really good young coach that had a group of young players that was that he was trying to work with and develop, which tick boxes me. I didn't want to go into non-league and just pick up a paycheck. That's not what I'm about. I never did that in my career, so I'm not going to start doing that in non-league. So I'd had other offers to play slightly higher on way more money, but Needham just was a fit for me. Like I said, the environment that he created with young players, I could see that he was trying to develop them and coach them, and I just wanted to be part of it. So I loved playing for Needham. I can't remember, I must have played for about 3 or 4 years, I think. I'd been told to pack in because my knee I'll end up a cripple, but I loved every moment, the stick I got. Because at that time, I don't think any player from that played in the Premier League had dropped to that level at that time. I think I was one of the first, so I got battered every ground I went to. Yeah, yeah, we had a bit, but I had banter with the crowd. They're battering me, going, "Oh, you has been." I was saying, "But you're still paying to watch me, and I ain't even. I'm not got cartilage in my left knee, and you're still paying to watch me." I got a bit of banter with them, and it was fun, and like I say, I enjoyed every moment of it. Up until it got to the point where I was struggling the day after, and I thought, you know what, now is time to maybe stop playing and concentrate on something else.
But when you managed them, though, when you started your management career with them, were they step four then, or was it step three?
Step three.
Step three. So was that Isthmian Prem then, or was that still, or were you in the Southern League then?
We was in the Southern Central.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Mark Moores had gotten promoted. I think it was away at Chatham, wasn't it, on the last game?
Don't talk about that. We gloss over that because that season there was the season because I was involved in Harlow and that was the 100-point season,
Oh,
100-point
yeah,
goals. And of course Mark's team. I think it was probably one of the most exciting seasons for me ever in non-league football because I think the last but one game of the season, Harlow went to Needham, and if
yeah,
Needham had won the game, then it was all over. And I think it ended up they took a lead and all the rest of it, and then Harlow brought it back and missed an open goal in the last 2 seconds of the game when Craig Pope put it wide. And then when he went to the final game of the season, I think Harlow were winning 1-0 and 0-0 Chatham against Needham, and we were winning the league. And then, of course, they went on to smash Chatham about 5 or 6-0, and Mark's team.
yeah. I was actually out there. God, you sound a little bit raw still, mate, about that. Is that
Well,
still?
it's just one of those, but you know, one of the seasons that sticks in your mind. You know, I'm a great friends with Mark, but it was just one of those seasons. You know, when the excitement was incredible. Do you know what I mean? Because you come out and look at your phone every fuss to see how each other had done, and you know, I was phoning Mark, and Mark it was just one of those sort of seasons that was just unforgettable. You know.
Yeah, I was at the Chatham game. I think Bruv scored over a kick that day.
Mm.
Yeah, a little over a kick, and they did win comfortable in the end.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's when they got promoted. So when I come in, I was in at step three. Um, Again, it was tough because the travelling. Southern Central was travelling up to Birmingham. The first couple of years, we started the season of COVID. We started really well. It was my first season, but I only took 8 games. I think we were top of the league, and then it got stopped. And the following season was tough. I was trying to get a blend of young players, players that had been there for a while, and we had a really good FA Cup run. Oh, sorry, FA Trophy. We got to quarterfinals, but our league form was poor. And then the following year was a little bit the same, where we got to the first round of the FA Cup, but the league form had obviously been hampered because of that. And then obviously the year we got promoted, it all sort of just fell in place. We didn't have a great cup run, which probably helped in terms of number of games, but we just got in the habit of winning games. They knew exactly what I wanted from them. We played a shape that suited the players that we had, and we worked ever so hard for each other. And like I said at the very start, if you can create an environment where lads want to come to training, that they want to work hard, they can have fun as well, that there's scope for them to make mistakes. I think that's important. I think if you're too strict and don't expect mistakes to be made on a football pitch, I think you're in the wrong business. There's always going to be mistakes, but creating that environment where everyone's pulling together and feel at ease, it was special. We just kept winning games, and that becomes a habit. We were going out expecting to win in the end, which is mental because Needham Market, obviously, with chimney pots, should never be in step two, should never really probably be in step three, if I'm totally honest. But it just shows you what can be achieved. So there's hope out there for all football clubs, as long as it's done in the right way. Like I said, Needham was a football club that's been done properly.
So was there a game in that season as well, the promotion season? It's one game that sticks to mind. I can't think who the team was. There was a team at the top of the table that you were playing as you know, were going for the title as well, and you went there and really did turn them over. Was it 6-0 or something like that? 6-7-0?
Colville, yeah. And
Colville, yeah.
you know the mad thing is, the first game of the season we lost 6-1.
Hmm.
We lost 6-1 to Stratford, and I remember coming home from that game thinking, this is gonna be a tough season. This, and you know what? From that game, I think because we had been good, we'd been really good in pre-season, and I didn't see. To be fair, it wasn't a 6-1 game. We could have scored 7 ourselves. It could have been 7-all, but every chance they had, they scored, and we didn't. And I remember coming home because we'd had a good pre-season. Think, God, I didn't see that coming. And it was probably the kick up the backside that we needed because we'd had a really good pre-season. And sometimes that happens where you think, oh yeah, this is going to be all right this season, and it just give us a little bit of a shock on the first game of the season. And then, like I say, we went on winning games that probably people didn't give us a chance of winning. And the Colville game you're on about, we were brilliant that day. we it just all fell into place. Lads were doing exactly what we asked of them. We were scoring unbelievable goals. We were a threat, and we looked solid at the back. And that's how that season continued.
Mm. And it was just one of those seasons, as you said, like that. No disrespects, no one expected. I mean, if anybody was looking at Needham Market, no one was physically probably looking at Needham Market more towards the other end of the table more than to that zone. And it just did you get to a stage during that season where you felt, you know, this is the time when I knew we were going to get promoted?
Yeah, I got to admit, like I didn't say it out openly or vocally to anybody, but we just got in this place where, and I've had it before in my playing career when I've been promoted at teams where it just felt like it was going to happen. Like I don't know, it's just like I can't. It's difficult for me to explain. It just had a feeling we was winning games. We were going out. We were confident, not arrogant. We were confident of going out, and we knew we weren't going to lose games. And the games just kept started running out. We found ourselves top of the table, and the games were getting chalked off. So I think from 10 games to go, I sort of had a really strong feeling that we were going to win it.
And was that a situation then in the dressing room trying to keep the lads sort of feet on the ground as well? Because then all of a sudden, you know, you're not probably when you had a chat with the chairman at the beginning of the season, I don't suppose he said, look, you know, Kev, I want us to make sure that you
No,
know we're gonna get promoted. I don't suppose that came into the conversation. But you know, so was it difficult then to sort of keep those sort of feet on the ground?
everyone became a little bit nervous. Obviously Needham are a club that's made strides forward over the years from time, like from when they ever first started. They've tried to progress, but they was getting a bit edgy because obviously with going up becomes a little bit more expensive. Finances change slightly, but in terms of me, I took a sort of slightly different approach to the lads. I didn't want the lads to feel that they weren't arrogant, they weren't getting ahead of themselves. If anything, I was worried about them going the other way and becoming really nervous about it. So I was the opposite way. So I'd go into games saying, look, lads, and we were getting close. We were getting close, and everybody senses that. And you're looking at the table. I was a little bit blasé with it. I said, look, lads, I said, today's game's a big game, obviously. Games are running out. I said, the worst thing that happens today is what? And they say, we lose. I said, yep. And do you know what? If we lose today, and they what? I said, we're still going to win the league. So I sort of tried to alleviate all that pressure from them. So it was okay if we lost. Obviously, in my head, I'm thinking, no, yeah, like I said, well, I've just tried to alleviate the pressure and just say, look, if we lose today, it's not the end of the world. We're still going to win the league. But inside, I was thinking, yeah, we definitely need to win today. But I think it just allowed the players to play with freedom. At the end of the day, if lads aren't under pressure, if players aren't under pressure, they perform better. So I sort of try and take that with me through my managerial career. Take the pressure off them and let it all be on me.
And about how did they sort of respond to it though? Because I mean, the excitement must have started to build. I would have thought inside of the group as well.
Yeah, you know what? We didn't get too carried away with ourselves. Obviously, we were getting closer and closer. And then I think the game that we actually got promoted, I think all the emotions come out. I think you sense the relief. All the tension was gone, and obviously the lads deserved all the credit they got. They had a real good celebration, and rightly so. But look, I shed a tear. I'm not going to lie. I sat on the bench. The lads were celebrating. I just sat on my own and had a quiet moment and got quite emotional because it was a roller coaster of a season, and obviously I hadn't achieved anything like that as a manager before, and to do it as a manager felt different. As a player, you're part of a team. As a manager, quite a lot of responsibility lies with you. So yeah, it was an unbelievable moment, and it's something that I crave to feel again, and hopefully I can do that with it at Maldon.
And I mean, because that season as well, Mikalova set off like a steam train, didn't they? I think they went about 12 games, something like that, before they lost.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's again, there's moments in all the seasons where I've been promoted as a player, and obviously that season as manager. There's always moments where you think, do you know what? Maybe the stars just aligned. It was our moment. We went to Mikalova. I think we was about, I can't remember how many points behind them, and we was getting closer to them. And we went to Mikalova, and if they'd have beat us that day, they would have probably gone on another run and probably won the league, if I'm honest. But we went there. I had players missing. I had about 5 lads out injured. I had left backs playing right backs, midfielders playing at the back, and we went there and we got absolutely battered. Right, it could have been 4 at half time, but we was 1-0 down, and we hung in the game. They missed chance after chance. I think they had another chance second half where they should have scored, and then we equalised with about 12 minutes to go, and we could have actually won it. We nearly scored right at the death, and we come away with a point when we deserved probably nothing. But it's just that again, it's is it fate? Is it where we worked so hard all season where we earned that little bit of luck? I don't know. But that game was massive, and it probably knocked them a little bit. And then we just kept winning games after that, and they wasn't on the form that they were on, obviously, early on in the season. It was a big game, that.
I mean, look at it here. I'm just to put it up here. Needham Market played 40, won 26, drew 7, lost 7, 85 points, and won it by 3 points in the end. From teams, some big old teams in there. Hull's Owen are in there,
Telford.
Colville are in there, and AFC Telford, who finished second. I mean, their ground's sort of like ridiculous, almost League Two standard, League
But
One.
we went there and won. Like,
Mm.
no one really gives us a chance. A massive crowd, obviously. We scored goals at good times in that game. I think we scored near the start of the game and then just before half time. But yeah, no one gives us a chance. And to get promoted out of step 3 with the budget we had against the teams like you've just mentioned was incredible.
Yeah.
Was incredible.
So I mean, you got that call then on, the Maldon stuff then, as we've seen in the last few weeks, and from when we record this, it's like that sort of come on board. And I mean, how much of a tug was that then for you? Because you've had 4 very successful seasons at Needham Market, as you say, got them to probably the highest they've ever been. And then all of a sudden, another challenge comes on that you can see that you can take another team that is, possibly going to skyrocket. I mean, how difficult was that to leave sort of a team that you
Yeah.
got time for?
Yeah, it was tough, and I was emotional when I told them. Like, obviously, I'd been there a number of years now, and you build relationships with players and people that are at the football club. But I don't know, this opportunity, I couldn't turn it down. I know there's I've seen posts and on social media about I'm being paid a fortune. I'm not. I'm being paid a decent wage, and it means I can just do this job instead of me doing the 2 jobs I was doing. But it's more than just the money for me. It was the time. So gives me time to be obsessed and fully committed to being successful for Maldon, and gives me time to see my family and grandchildren. And it was the project. They want to make this club. They want to take it to the Football League, Barry and Scott. And after meeting them and listening to them, I was sceptical. I'm not going to lie. I was thinking, God, what is this? Is this going to be a circus? What's going on? Are they genuine? They are 100% genuine. Unbelievable people, really successful. And when you meet people face to face and look into the whites of their eyes, you can tell that they mean what they're saying. So once I'd met them, it was an easy decision. As much as it was hard to leave Needham, it was an easy decision to join Maldon.
And how difficult is it now then, sort of like, I know we spoke about it on Monday, but from your point of view, when you see sort of negative stuff from fans that have possibly been long time fans, and it's still going on to this day, even after our chat Monday around the badge, and other stuff. I mean, how difficult is that there for you then to try and get a good team on the pitch to sort of like bring it all together?
Look, my job's pretty simple. Obviously, I've worked with budgets that are quite low. This is a different problem for me, where I've been given a budget that's will be the biggest in the division. I'm not going to hide away and say, oh no, it's not, and pretend it's not. It's the biggest budget, and I've been given all the tools to be successful. There's always going to be haters. Again, the badge situation, I don't want to go overboard and comment too much on it. The badge hasn't been around for years and years and years and years. It's I think it was someone said it was formed 14 years ago or that. It's not a badge that's been around 100 years. I get people want to stick with a history but look, it's their football club. They want to change it into a community football club that's for everybody, and they want a more modern badge. It's not, I don't see it being the end of the world, but I know there's going to be people with differing opinions. I quite like it, but more importantly, more importantly, I like what they're trying to do. Like you see on Saturday, nearly 700 people there.
Yeah,
Maldon were getting 150 people. There's a buzz about the place.
Yeah.
There's kids with smiles on their faces. There's people in the bar watching football after, and I'm just pleased, or I feel very lucky that they've trusted in me to be manager, and I want to bring them all the success I can. And thankfully, so far so good. We've scored 5 goals at the weekend, not conceded. So hopefully, quite a lot of them, nearly 700 people, will come back and watch us again.
So a lot of people would say, "Oh, Kev's going to go in there." You talking about budget, but I look at it sometimes and think, and again, I might be talking complete nonsense here. That sometimes it's probably more difficult to have that budget than not have it, because you're going to get all these people, maybe agents, players, etc., all phone up going, "Oh, Kev, look, I'll come and play for Maldon. I'll come and play for this, and I'll come and play for that." And now all of a sudden you've got to get to that situation again. Well, hang on a minute. You've got to go for players that that can do you a job, rather than players that might just want to be jumping into the project just because there's money.
You've hit the nail on the head, mate. That's why my phone just died, because I've been on the phone so much. Honestly, I've never known so many people to contact me. Look, I've got to manage that, and again, I've got to try and be successful. They've given me the budget to be successful, but I've got to be mindful as well that I've got to get the right player, right temperament, and them to come for the right reasons. And again, I'll go back to what I said about the Needham. It's about creating that environment where they're not. It's not about the money. It's not. It's about being part of something, being part of something special. Which again, when you finish your careers and look back, you can go, do you know what? What about that time when we did that there? And this is a real opportunity for me and players that get to play for Maldon and the fans to be part of a football club that people one day will look back and go, do you remember when they played that low down in Step 4? That's the aim. And yeah, and if I can do that by not spending all the budget, I'm not going to just go around splashing the budget. Obviously, I'm going to get players in key areas that are probably going to cost a bit more money than you'd normally pay at Step 4. But I'm trying to build a squad to get us out of Step 3 already. That's the plan, and it's now my job and the staff's job to bring that success, because that's what the owners demand, and rightly so. They're investing a lot of money.
No, absolutely, 100%. And to say, as I said to you on Monday, wish you all the very, very best for that. And I'm really pleased to say, thank you for giving up your time today. And I know you're a busy man, so it's really nice to see you doing your Harry Redknapp for me. And but it's but it's a massive thank you. But stay there, so to speak to you about afterwards. But yeah, a massive thank you for Kevin for joining us again today. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Of course, we'll be back for more of My Life in Football Series 4 in the very near future. But from me and from Kevin, thank you very much indeed for watching, and good night.